We're going to read some first pages of some screenplays today. Probably should have asked if these were features or TV shows. For the purposes of this live stream, that's only somewhat important. Of course, the first page of a TV show or a feature might be structurally different. But we'll dive in here. So this first one, I think this one right here is from Kat Z, and she's on X. Let's see here. Yeah, that's her. All right, cool. So I'm going to read these out loud so you guys can follow along. And then we'll dive in and do a little critique. I'm just going to move this down so I can read it. All right, cool. So here we are. Interior, red brick house. 90s era kitchen, day. A calm, spacious kitchen, bright and airy, with a distant chatter of wild birds drifting in through an open window. Halfway along the polished countertop, a glass of water and a clear zip-top bag containing 2 oxycodone pills. Nina Miller, 17, sits on the floor below, unconscious, with her back propped against the laminate cabinetry. Loose strands of her dyed black hair drape over her young, pale face. A rhythmic whispering rises from beneath the ambient sounds of nature, overtaking them. Nina's eyes roll back, showing only the whites. Her mouth moves, faintly muttering. She is the source of the whispering. Nina's murmurs fade, and one clear word falls from her dry, graying lips. Deal. Cut to interior, red brick house, family room, continuous. Middle-class furnishings with lived-in warmth, armchair by the window. Bookshelf speakers either side of the family television. Despite the room being unoccupied, the television switches on, its screen displaying a band rocking out on stage as heavy metal music plays at a low volume. On the television screen, the volume bar appears over the action and rapidly fills the maximum level, pushing the speakers to their limits. After an appropriate amount of time, it disappears, leaving us with a clear view of the band. The stage is a riot of energy as the band members thrash about to the driving beat. Graphics of green skulls adorn the stage banners and the band's kick drum skin. Cool. I really like that. The writing here is good. It's clear, it's clean. It flows down the page. I didn't really get bumped on any language. I didn't have to go back and read anything more than once. Conceptually, seems like we have this woman, Nina, and she's unconscious on the floor, and she's muttering to herself. And then her eyes roll back and she says one word, deal. And then it does appear to be continuous. So what I didn't connect before that now I'm connecting is that she is in the kitchen and this family room is outside of that kitchen. And this is continuous. And the TV is playing in the other room. So now that I've connected those two things, it's starting to make a little bit more sense. But I'm trying to glean exactly what is going on in this scene. Because I'm not 100% sure. Now, it does say that, it's an unoccupied room and the TV switches on by itself. At least that seems to be the implication. And if that's the case, then it seems like we might be in some kind of horror, supernatural kind of story where maybe Nina is communicating with some kind of entity or spirit, and that spirit is the thing that switched the TV on. But I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure. It could just as easily be, her talking to herself, because she's, unconscious or semi-conscious. And maybe the TV just had a glitch. Maybe there was a power surge. I can come up with reasonable explanations that aren't, we're in a haunted house kind of story. And so I guess my note for the writer would be, at least big picture wise, to make sure that what you're trying to convey is actually clear on the page. Because I had a little bit of confusion as to what exactly was going on here. And clarity is so important. It's at the top of the list of things that not only are, important for doing it well, but at the top of the list for things that sometimes I see done not so well. And it's the sort of lack of clarity that can bump a reader. So I think that's probably the big note here, is just, is it a haunted house? Is there some kind of spirit controlling the television? Or is there something else going on here that maybe I'm reading into it too much or too little? If I was the writer, and let's just say, I can't talk to the writer right now because they're not here, but if I was the one writing this, and let's say it was, some kind of supernatural thing going on here with the television, and, she's been, knocked out by some evil spirit or something like that, I would probably include some language that makes that more clear. Sometimes for emphasis, readers need, not to be spoon-fed, but again, clarity. If something's not coming through 100%, that's super important, like the genre or the tone or the fact that, on page 1, you're trying to, get the audience to be scared or spooked, or somehow, in a fearful state of mind because this is supposed to be a scary movie. You may need to drop some hints in the language to make sure that we know this is that kind of movie, and that this is what's actually going on here. Otherwise, some readers could be, a bit confused. I think the writing's great. Like I said, it's clear. The sentences are spare. There's lots of white space on the page. The eye moves down the page. It's clean language. So, as far as formatting and all of that kind of, very microscopic screenwriting stuff, I think this writer is doing very well at that. And what I would focus on is getting the story and the intent of, thinking about your audience and what they're experiencing on the page, trying to make that as, consistent across multiple readers as you can. Because I sense that this may be something supernatural, but I'm not sure. And so that's sort of the biggest note for me on this one. Oh, look, Kat just sent me a message. She said, I was correct. So yeah, it is actually a supernatural story. Nina is having some kind of experience with a spirit or entity, and there is, that entity in some way is interacting with the TV and making it turn on by itself. And maybe it has something to do with this rock band. Maybe they're an evil rock band. All of that stuff is great. And sounds like Kat, yeah, thumbs up. She's going to try to make it more clear. Well, you're very welcome. I hope it helps. And thank you so much for sharing your page. Very brave. Not easy to do that, to be broadcast on the internet. But I think it's a strong page. And once you really sort of hone in on that clarity, I think it'll be, quite a bit stronger. Cool. So I think I'm probably going to only spend about 10, 15 minutes on each page. I want to make sure we get through as much as we can. But like I said at the beginning, I do want to be thorough. And if there's anything of note that I want to get to and, we're over time, it's not a big deal. We'll just, we'll keep going. But anyways, I think we can move on. Actually, just got a message on my Twitter from X, that submitted a page. I'm not sure what their name is. I think their username is like an asterisk or something. But they did send me a page, and they said they're eagerly awaiting the critique. So let's just go to them next. I believe this is the one. Yep, this one, that one. All right, cool. So this is their page. I hope they're here. Hope they can see their writing and recognize their page. So I'll read this one, and we'll do some feedback on the other side. This one's called I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Hyrcania, maybe Hyrcania. Yeah. So exterior, Abadan, Iran, 1978 night. A lone street, choked by darkness. The air hums with the distant pulse of a city holding its breath. A single flickering street lamp throws shadows across the cracked pavement. Beneath it, a man, 40s, moves with mechanical precision, his limbs stiff, his gait unnervingly even. This over a little bit. 2 jerry cans hang heavy in his grip, the sloshing of fuel inside breaking the silence. A duffel bag, stuffed and frayed, weighs down his shoulder. A tear rolls down his cheek, then another. His expression remains vacant, eyes fixed ahead. Exterior, Cinema Rex, continuous. A theater looms overhead, its marquee advertising... Guess it's the Deer, written in Farsi. The man stands before the entrance, a statue slick with sweat. His breath comes in measured, pulls in, out, like he's timing something only he can hear. He drops the duffel. It thuds against the concrete, a metallic shriek as the chain bites into the metal. He tugs. The doors rattle but hold. He turns, walking toward the rear of the building. The alley swallows him whole. Exterior, rear alley, continuous. The emergency exit hangs ajar, a sliver of darkness pulsing within. A single caged bulb buzzes overhead, painting the man's hands sallow yellow as he raises them. Knock, knock, a sound too precise to be random. The door creaks open. A shadowed face peers out. Just eyes. Really. A glint of recognition, of resignation. A beat. The door opens wider. The man steps through. All right. That was fun. I love the writing here. It feels very intentional, very in control, which is always good for a writer. When you get the sense that the writer is confident and, sort of has a command over their craft. And I can tell this writer has that. I love the world, 1978 Iran. I think a lot of the establishing setting and setting description stuff is awesome. I really loved the first line in particular. One of the things that I talk about often is how there's no more precious real estate in a script than your first page, and then further your first line on your first page. I mean, I can't think of anything in a script more important than making sure that your first line on your first page, let alone the whole page, really sings. And this first line here, a lone street choked by darkness. The air hums with the distant pulse of the city holding its breath. See, that's evocative writing. The writer here didn't get too caught up in, little sort of, setting details, sometimes surface cosmetic stuff, the color of the walls or, small little props, that kind of thing, which is fine if they're important to the story. But this writer understood what was important in this story, which was, establishing an opening image that created a world. On that note, it might be worth figuring out some way in this part right here. So here's the first two lines. So I love this opening line. We get the image of a street choked by darkness. We know we're in Iran. It's a street, it's choked by darkness. It's a great evocative image. We love, how the air is sort of humming with the pulse of the city holding its breath. It's great evocative language. But we don't really get more visual description until the next line. Looks like, there it says a single flickering street lamp throws shadows across the cracked pavement. All right, so now we know the street is cracked and we know there's a street lamp. So we're adding to the image. And we know now that there's a man beneath the street lamp, walking. I think in terms of writing efficiency, this is, it's all great. And I love this opening image. However, I do wonder if there is some kind of way to not necessarily combine the first two lines, but find some way to add a little bit of specificity, at least in the first line, so that we have a little bit more to sort of grab onto as a reader. Because a lone street could be, could be two lanes, could be an avenue, could be, very urban, could be, sort of in a denser area or a more spread out area. I think all of the sort of, like I said, I wouldn't get lost in being too specific and start listing things that aren't necessary. But, in the opening line especially, you want to make the image as absolutely as clear as possible. And so, what I would probably do here is, like I said, find some specific way, a lone street. Well, is it a narrow street? That's sort of weird too, is like a lone street. Like, yeah, I understand lone is a great sort of poetic word here, but, to some readers, they might think, is it a street in the middle of nowhere? Is there nothing around the street? You sort of have to preempt different ways that a reader might misinterpret your own writing. And I could see someone reading this and be like, a lone street. Okay, well, are there buildings on either side of it? Like, is it a street that sort of exits the city or goes into the city? Like, what is the direction? What's around it? That kind of thing. And so, maybe the word for me is, a narrow street, choked by darkness. And then maybe after the choked by darkness, you have an opportunity there to say, and maybe you say a lone street choked by darkness, comma, not period. And then say, narrow and, covered in garbage or litter, or, come up with some kind of additional description that tells us, like, okay, this is not some really wide avenue. It's a narrow street. Specificity here, I think, would add a little bit to the image that the audience paints in their mind. And obviously it's a balance. You don't want to, add too many words. It's about painting the clearest picture that you can in the fewest amount of words possible. So yeah, like if there was a way to add the street lamp, it's like a lone street choked by darkness, narrow and, with trash, strewn about or whatever. Wouldn't probably use those words, but a lone street choked by darkness, narrow and filled with litter, glows under a flickering street lamp. Like then you've gotten that part of it into the first sentence, right? Because we don't know about the street lamp. And also that it's a bit of a contradiction now that I'm realizing this, is like, it's a street that's choked by darkness, which definitely implies like, maybe there's some darkness and then some light, but I realize I'm getting really, really micro here. But this stuff's important, especially how the reader is interpreting your words. But this is a little bit of a contradiction, a lone street choked by darkness. And then in the very next line, it says there's a flickering street lamp. And that contradicts the darkness part a little bit. Maybe there's a more specific way to paint that image, bring up the street lamp to the first sentence somehow, talk about the contrast between the pool of light that the street lamp creates, choked by darkness around it. Then I've got a clearer picture. I'm like, okay, it's a lone narrow street, and it's got a street lamp, and there's a pool of light, and there's darkness everywhere else. Because without that rephrasing, you are kind of contradicting your first sentence. Because if it's choked by darkness, which implies really dark, how then, is the street lamp, not having an effect on that darkness? Clearly there's some darkness and some light. It's a very well-written first couple lines here. But like I said with the first script, clarity is just too important to overlook. And also just, I think as a general rule of thumb, your first lines, especially your first line, like I would be hesitant to write a script where it takes two separate sentences, two separate chunks of action description, to paint one opening image. Like I would just try to find a way to paint the full opening image in your first chunk of action description. I just wouldn't split it up like that, because then you're kind of like leading the audience a little bit, and they don't have 100% of the information that they need to paint the full picture. And therefore, when they read this first sentence, they might think, oh, it's a lone street and it's dark. Okay, got that. Got the humming air. Great. And then we get to the next line. It says a single flickering street lamp throwing shadows across the pavement on this street. Imagine being in that person's head. They just imagined a dark, lone street. And then suddenly there's a street lamp. So in their mind, they have to kind of go back. They have to be like, oh, and now there's a street lamp. Probably not as efficient as it could be. So I'm going to move on to another one in a minute, but I do want to zoom out and just talk about sort of more story stuff on this page. I really did like the atmosphere in this work here in this script. I think the writing is again, it's clean, flows down the page. I didn't really get bumped. It's moody, it's visual. If I were watching this movie, I'd be interested. If not from anything more than just the setting and the disposition of our main character. And then obviously anytime a character walks up to a, what is this? Walks up to a closed door that cracks open and there's just eyes, like you can, sort of get the tense vibe there. This is good stuff. I would totally keep watching. I don't know what's happening here. I really don't know, I don't know much about this guy. I don't know his backstory. I don't know. I just know there's a guy with a duffel bag at night, and he walks up to a door and encounters this person with eyes who recognizes them. And it's very mysterious, which is good. It does make me want to keep reading. And I imagine on page 2, things start to get a bit more interesting. I'll say one last thing on this page, which is that overall, I think the writing is very good. You've built a great world. You've established some sort of intrigue to find out, as an audience member, if I'm reading this or watching this, I'm thinking, okay, this guy's on some kind of mission, personal mission. He's doing something important. And he's doing it at night. And, I would be interested in reading on. However, if I had one suggestion, sort of big picture and concept wise on this page, it would be, is there a way to inject just a little bit more bite into this first page? Something at the bottom of the first page that's like eyebrow raising and really makes you go like, oh, perhaps it's something with this character who's, peering out of the door. Something, he pulls something out of his pocket and it's a very interesting item. Just something sort of a degree more, it's like, as they said in Spinal Tap, turn it up to 11. That's what I would do. I think it's very much in 8, 9, 10 territory right now. And it's like, all right, what is the thing that I can add to this page that'll spice it up so that when any reader gets to the bottom of page 1, they suddenly lean in and go, oh, that is interesting. That's the kind of thing that I would probably try to add to this page. And then just one last thing. The only writing thing that I got bumped on here was painting the man's hands sallow yellow. I think the sallow and the yellow is probably just one hair too much, especially right together like that. It bumped me a little bit. So, maybe you just cut sallow, sallow usually means yellow. So do we need to say sallow yellow? Probably not. You can just say yellow. And we'll know that it's sallow because it's yellow. Now, it is kind of a different shade of yellow, sallowness. But, if you were to look at a person's skin and, say they looked sallow, we would know it was yellow that they're talking about. So I'd probably just, X out this word and just say, painting the man's hands yellow as he raises them. Yeah, and then I'm realizing I'm not loving the painting the man's hands yellow. If taken too literally, that could be, I get that it's sort of metaphorical and symbolic and it's very poetic, but, I wonder if instead of painting, a better word would be bathing the man's hands in yellow light as he raises them. Could that be better, smoother? I don't know. That's how I might phrase it. Cool. Well, we spent a while on that one. So let's move on to another. By the way, I really hope that, this is being informative for you guys and, you're learning a lot and enjoying this live session. This is my first one, by the way. I've never done this before. Depending on how it goes, I hope it's going well. Maybe we'll do it pretty often. Every so often we'll do this because I know how useful seeing feedback in real time and being able to sort of follow along into the thought process can be for writers that are trying to learn and grow their skills because it's something that I used to do all the time. Especially shout out to the Script Notes podcast, John August and Craig Mason's podcast. That's sort of where I, had that experience. I used to, I still listen to their podcast sometimes, but there was a time when I was listening every single episode, I think it was every week. I don't know. It was pretty often, but I was listening to all of them. And my favorite episodes were the ones where they did the 3-page challenge. They called it the 3-page challenge. People would send in their scripts and, they'd read them, I think, aloud on the air or on the podcast. And then they would give feedback on it, right then and there. And they would submit the pages on their website so you could download them and follow along. And I just remember how useful that was for me. Especially, if the real sort of synthesizing moments when you're following along on feedback like that are at least for me when I had the same sort of feeling or thought about one of the scripts or a part of the script that John or Craig on the podcast had as well, and you're like, oh, interesting. Like it starts to sort of positively reinforce your own instincts. Be like, oh, I had that same thought. It's sort of validating for your process and your growth as a writer. So, part of why I'm doing this. I hope it's helpful, and maybe we'll do it again. All right, so this one is called The Program. Awesome. This is actually a script that was written by a very good friend of mine. His name's Nate. He's an old friend, and we've been, we share each other's work. We share our work with each other all the time and always give each other feedback. And I asked him if he would submit a page, and he did. So let's get into it. All right. Exterior grade school, day. A sleek roundabout arcs gracefully in front of a modern grade school. Brookhaven Preparatory. Etched in the presenting headstone. The school's glass facade catches the early sun as it sits at the edge of a dense pine forest. A handful of leaves spiral down. Cars are making the rounds. Kids get dropped off. It's an orderly line. Among them, a blue Lexus pulls ahead. Interior, blue Lexus, day. I'm trying to read this name. Omar Archer, early 40s. Glasses almost spilling off his face. Assesses the shuffle unfolding before him. Almost there, he turns to his son Ellis, 8. Confident but reserved kid. A proud smile forms on Omar's face. The line inches forward. Omar gently reaches out, straightening Ellis's collar. Ellis looks up, puzzled. Dad, it's fine. Practice is still tonight, right? Every day this week, you know that. Ellis looks away. Omar straightens his back, focused. It's Wednesday, so what? Jukes, spins, and cuts? Keep your eyes on their hips. Not their feet at practice. Feet lie, hips don't. I like that line. Sorry. Let me move this up. Ellis, embarrassed. You said that yesterday, Dad. You also made some lame joke about some lady named Shakira. Humor me, Ellis. One day the jokes will be the only part you remember. Ellis frowns, sensing something off. All right, that's page 1. Cool. So I'm going to try to sort of break this page down as if it were in a vacuum and I did not know what this concept is or where the story's going. I'm going to try to set that aside because I do actually know a little bit about this concept, although this is the first of it that I've read. But I really just want to, take this first page on its own and, sort of, give feedback and critique, based on not knowing the rest of the story and not knowing the concept or the log line or having any background on this at all. Because I think that can be useful. Because there are script readers who read blind like that. They may not see a log line. They may not know. They may avoid the log line just so that they can, read the script without any, pre-impression. I'll get into the sort of the writing stuff, the nitty-gritty of the microscopic, how the words appear on the page kind of thing, after I sort of get into the more conceptual things. But here's my big 30,000-foot thought on these pages. Taken alone, all that I have here on these pages is a father dropping off his 8-year-old son at a private school. It's called Brookhaven, but we don't really know any more about the location than that. And they exchange some, warm dialogue with each other. There's a bit of, mystery about, something between them that isn't being said. So there is subtext there, and that's great. I did very much enjoy the hips don't lie joke. But if this were, if this were like a bill at the end of a meal at a restaurant, and I was trying to add up all the things that I got in this meal, and trying to figure out what it amounted to, my feeling is there's not a ton here to sort of chew on. If I don't know, like, I feel like this page almost could have been taken out of any genre. This could be a father-son drama. This could be a Lifetime movie. This could be, something, movie of the week kind of thing. Could be a Christmas movie on Hallmark. It could be, also could very easily be, a superhero film or a science fiction or a horror. I mean, I feel like this page doesn't give enough clues about tone and genre and intention when you really need to do that. And it's not that it's not well written. It's fine. It's good. You know, I know Nate well. I think he's an excellent writer. And this is writing that is clear. It's easy to follow. You know, like with the other two scripts I've read already, you know, your eye moves down the page. Lots of white space, you know, not much overwriting really. It's clean, it moves, it paints an image. I can follow the action and understand what's going on. What I'm saying is, I feel like I wish there were more going on. You know, not that the writing needs to be dense or you need to like pack tons of crazy wild things. I just think that sort of the bottom line of the page, not literally, but the, you know, like I said, what does the meal amount to in terms of this page? I feel like this is probably a meal that might leave you a little hungry. And I say that with love, Nate. You know, writing's a process. I have been here many times myself. So, you know, and like, look, you know, with all this stuff, this is just my opinion. You know, but I've been writing for a long time, and I've certainly been through it with my own scripts. So, you know, hopefully, that means I'm speaking from an informed place. But yeah, this is a good page that is well written. But you know, I do think it needs just more context. You know, kind of like the last one where I was, you know, saying, you know, more bite, a bit more spice on the first page, a bit more like, oh, I really want to turn to the next page kind of reaction from the audience. Same thing kind of applies here. Although I would say even more so, because, you know, in the last one, I would say, you know, the world building and the atmosphere and the intrigue and the mystery were actually all there. And then in this one, you know, that one really just needed like a cherry on top. This one, I feel like, you know, really needs, you know, again, more to chew on. More intrigue, more mystery, more, you know, and if not intrigue or mystery, just questions planted in the mind of the reader. Something on the page that makes the reader go, oh, that's interesting. I want to find out more about that. Because right now on this page, you know, we don't really have a whole lot of, you know, substance. That's the word, substance. We've got two, you know, sort of well-sketched or defined characters. We've got a father. We've got, you know, an 8-year-old. He's dropping him off at school. We know he drives a Lexus, so he's, you know, doing well. Potentially, although who knows? Maybe he stole the car. You never know. But you know, sort of if this were a math equation and I was just, or like I said, a bill or whatever, and I was just trying to fill in the elements and be like, okay, what is the sum of these parts? I would say add a few more items on the bill, so that when you get to the bottom of this first page, you go, okay, I understand why I'm reading this, because when I got to the sort of the last eighth of the page, something happened, or I saw something, or someone said something that made me lean in and go, this is compelling, I'm compelled, I'm invested, and I want more of this. Because right now it's, like I said, I feel like you could take this page and really put it in almost any movie. That's my big note. All right, so we got about 13 minutes left. Like I said, I'm happy to stick around a little bit longer. If we need to on the next one, just to make sure that we, we're thorough and we don't miss anything. But yeah, let's do it. All right. Oh, I wanted to do this one first, but now I guess we're doing it last. Save the best for last. So this is actually someone that submitted on TikTok. I believe it is Nick F. I think that's right. Appreciate the submission, Nick. Sorry it took until the end of the live stream to get to yours, but let's get into it. All right, cool. He waved. He's here. He's watching. Good stuff. All right, cool. So, all right, little camera adjustment. Interior, basement, dark. A computer monitor illuminating the desk around it. Vaseline, crusty tissues, empty wrappers and cans. A figure, brain rot, shuffles in front of the monitor. We only see his balding, stringy, greasy hair. No features. Sitting. Phlegmy breathing. Typing. A girl, 20s, disheveled, dirty, leaning forward into the light behind him. She's gagged, bound to a chair. Muffled cries, tears running down her cheeks. Shut up, I've got a call to make. Brain rot says. She recoils. Quiets. Brain rot in silhouette turning back to his computer. Clicking options, face filter, green screen background. Ringing. Celia, 20, stunning, appears on the video call. We see his camera and feed next to hers. Heavily altered, AI polished. A beautiful, square-jawed man, seated not in a dark room, but in a palatial villa. Sorry, it's a little blurred. The effect is seamless. Oh my God, you're even better than your pictures. I'm sure you say that to every paying customer. I mean it. I choose which clients I spend my time with, and I only do customs for people I like. Speaking of, I just finished making your custom. Do you want it now, baby? Interesting. All right, cool. So thanks for sharing your page, Nick. Really appreciate it. This is cool stuff. What I liked about this the most is the fact that you're giving us something that feels not so much original, but interesting in the way that, this is something I haven't really seen before. And the thing that gives me that feeling really is, towards the end of the page, when Celia comes on. And, we see that she is, heavily altered by AI. And she's talking to Brain Rot about some kind of thing that he's paying her for called a custom, which obviously refers to something that we don't really know what that means yet. And that's a great, way to plant a thought or a question in the mind of the reader. Because that's what it does. You get to the bottom here, you're like, oh, a custom, what is that? This is obviously some kind of specific lingo in this world that this writer is building. And I don't know what it is, but I want to know what it is. And just like I was saying, with all the other pages, it's like, what could be more important than getting to the bottom of page 1 for the reader and wanting to turn the page to page 2? And one of the ways of doing that is to just create interest. but specific interest, not some, weird intangible interest. I mean specifically, like they read something on the page that sparked their curiosity. And this reference here with Celia to this custom thing is the thing that sparked my curiosity. Because I don't know what it is. And I feel like we're in some kind of fictional world that has some market for these customs thing, and some AI altered avatar pops up on your computer and says, oh, I don't do customs. I don't do customs for, or I only do customs for people I like. It's interesting. Very, very good character stuff. Oh, cool. Very insightful feedback, John. Greatly appreciated. I'll definitely take into account what you said. I think this might be the Hyrcania person commenting. You're welcome. Happy to do it. Hope it's helpful. Yeah. Oh, excellent. His name is Alan. Visuals by Alan. Hyrcania was Alan's script, and he says he appreciated the feedback. Well, happy to do it, and you're welcome. So back to Nick F., who, yes, you are very welcome for the feedback, Nick. It is my pleasure. We'll take a few more minutes to dig into this one, because we have the time, and we'll get into sort of the more nitty-gritty of this stuff. And I'll start with this. So, big picture, conceptual, does this make me want to read on? Yes, absolutely, 100%. And then, in terms of the actual, writing style, one important note is that a lot of these verbs here are in, I think, what they call the present progressive tense. So, like, a computer monitor illuminating the desk around it. Sitting, phlegmy breathing, leaning forward into the light, tears running down her cheeks, clicking options. There's a lot of this on this page. And it's not that there's some, unbreakable rule that you can't use the present progressive. Of course you can, depending on the context and if it is necessary for what you're writing. But as a general rule of thumb, in screenwriting, which is not prose, it is not novel writing, you really need to use the active tense. I'm not sure what the prescriptive term is for that. But, this really should be a computer monitor illuminates the desk around it. You got one here, brain rot shuffles in front of the monitor. That's good. And then, you really do want to be consistent with that stuff. And you were relatively consistent. But yeah, so, sitting is usually fine. If it's like is sitting, that's one of those words. It's just like a real like edge case where, because of the way that word behaves in the English language. Because if you write, sits, the reader could think the character is in the act of sitting. While it could also refer to someone who is already sitting, the word sits. So that's a weird one. But, sort of phlegmy breathing, how could we rephrase that one? It probably would start with the word breathes, And phlegmy is kind of a funny word. It might do well in comedy, but for something that's relatively, straight toned, I bumped on that word a little bit. So maybe there's just a more polished way, or even a clearer way, to convey that, this guy's breathing. He's got fluid in his lungs. He's got mucus. Mucus might be a better word. Maybe it's, he's sitting and wheezes. What about he wheezes, right? Like he sits wheezing, his lungs filled with fluid and mucus. He's sitting wheezing, his lungs filled with mucus. That is more words, and I usually opt for less words whenever possible, but I think that might be just a stronger way to phrase it. Phlegmy is just a bit, I don't know. I'd say, he's sitting, wheezing, his lungs filled with mucus. Interesting. Didn't think about that, but yeah, you're totally right about the tense use in the words. Thank you, Nick. I'm glad to hear you agree. Anytime you can, sort of lessen the resistance from the reader and just let the writing go down smooth, those are usually things you want to opt to do. And this is definitely one of those examples. But yeah, further than that, yeah, I mean, muffled cries. So, it's like, a girl leaning forward into the light behind him. So that would probably be a girl leans forward into the light behind him. She's gagged, bound to a chair. Muffled cries is a little, I'd put a pin in that one and see if you can, it's a bit clinical, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so then tears, instead of tears running down her cheeks, and I know Nick got the point on this, but just for, to illustrate to you guys, to further, sort of solidify the point, tears, and maybe not run down her cheeks, because run's a little plain. Maybe it's tears stream down her cheeks, or pour down her face, but the point is not running. And even if it was tears streaming down her cheeks, I would still say it should be tears stream down her cheeks, because that makes it more active. And that's the whole point of this whole note on, choosing active verbs, is to make sure that it feels like it's happening right now. That's how we write screenplays. Novels, not so much. But the idea of a screenplay is to make sure that, it feels like it's happening in real time. So yeah, tears stream down her face. Brain rot, in silhouette, turns back to his computer. He clicks options. Yeah, and instead of like just the word ringing, because I think the problem with that is, we don't know what's ringing. It doesn't say. It just says, it's just basically saying, oh, there's ringing. Well, what kind of ringing? Is it ringing in his ear? Is it an alarm bell down the hallway? Is it his phone? Is it just what it really is, which is this notification of his video call on his computer? Would add to that one. I would add to that one, and instead of ringing, make it rings. I also like the word chimes, which feels very technological and future forward to me. Ringing feels a little old hat, but if you say, you could even say, you could use both words. You could even say that, a chime or a notification or a ding, a pop-up, like a pop-up chimes on an incoming video call. See, then you got one sentence, and you don't need ringing, period, Celia appears in the video call. Also, there's kind of some missing actions there, probably would want to indicate that he answers it or clicks OK or whatever it is, just he agrees that the call is going to come in. And I don't know how the technology works in this world, in this story. But I assume, like most, video calls, you get a notification and then you choose whether or not you want to answer it. So the action could be a bit clearer. So Nick says he didn't even consider the missing actions. Yeah. Hey, sometimes, we get ahead of ourselves in our writing, and we leap to the next action without writing, sort of the intermediary actions. And that's not always a bad thing, because you don't want to get bogged down. You don't want to over-describe and overwrite. And if it's not important, leave it out. But then there's continuity. And continuity is important, just so that the audience understands what's happening from moment to moment in the script. Without having to take weird logical leaps. So if I was going to rephrase that one, it'd probably be, something like, a pop-up. I would say like a pop-up dings or chimes, a pop-up dings on his computer screen with an incoming video call, period. And then you could say, it's Celia, 20s, stunning. And then that also kind of mixes up sort of the way that it plays out on the page too, so that you're kind of saving your punchline for the end of the phrase, for the end of the description. Saving, almost like it was a joke. Like a comedian standing on stage. Like the punchline comes at the end, right? And usually the words that have the most punch come at the end. Almost like a reveal. You're revealing it. And I would probably rephrase this sentence for that kind of structure, because then it is a reveal. Oh, someone's calling him. Oh, it's a video call. Oh, he answers it. Oh, it's Celia, and she's 20s, stunning, right? Kind of a logical, Nick says perfect, exactly. It just would sort of flow better and almost just feel more narratively precise and intended, so that it has the most impact for the reader. Because if you start with ringing Celia, it's like, okay, well, sorry guys, I just got like a notification that my live is going to end in 5 minutes if I don't move a puzzle piece on the screen. Anyways, that's taken care of. Hopefully we're good. Going to wrap this up in just a few seconds. But glad that Nick liked that particular piece of feedback. Those are my writing notes on this one. That's some sort of conceptual stuff. Like I said, it's a cool, there's sort of intrigue here. There's, lingo that is, unfamiliar in a good way that sparks curiosity for me and makes me want to read on. It's got a lot of the elements that you really want on a first page, which is just, do I want to keep reading? Do I want to turn to the next page? And I think this has that for sure. So really, it's just a matter of smoothing out some of the language, and it's just polish. It's really all it is. It's just polish. And also interesting. Yeah, a very interesting name, Brain Rot. That's clever too, because it's just not. I don't think I've ever come across a character in a story of any kind called his name was Brain Rot. I mean, you get 100 out of 100 for originality on that one. So yeah, I think we can probably wrap this up. It's been about an hour and 7 minutes. Thanks for coming by, and really, appreciate your welcome, Kat. Glad it was helpful, and you're welcome, Nick. Hope it was, good, and hopefully not too boring. Thanks a bundle, John. Learned a lot. Cool, great, excellent. Yeah, so we'll do this again. I think it sounds like was useful for some writers out there. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever you are. I've got videos on my profile, by the way. I give tons of, just sort of general screenwriting advice in videos, and I post movie clips and, all kinds of filmmaking and screenwriting related stuff. So, check it out. Let me know what you think. And I'll let you guys know when we do this again. So that's it, guys. Take care.